When they say don't let appearances deceive you, believe them. It wasn't always like this in the Chapman-Burgess household. Back in 1992, Quinns, India, Georgia, Erica, Jack and Lewis took a rather more laid-back approach to television. But now they're 2.5.
I think this is good, then I'll add in the kitchen, you see.
I got a bottom.
You've got a wet bottom, all right? I'll change it.
And according to Mum and Dad, Adele and Bert, they're not so terrible toddlers.
I find that I do more work at home than I do actually at work. It's just changing and playing and just trying to keep them happy all the time. Yeah.
The house is set up for them, so everything's down that they're allowed to play with, so you're not chasing them all the time and saying, no, don't touch this and don't touch that. So they know the barriers, you know, that they can go and how far they can go. And my husband and I do it ourselves with the help of grandparents, and as they're getting older, it's just getting much easier.
You've got to push them around in the cars, and you've got to play ball, and you've got to swing them, and you've got to give them a drink, and then they've got to have a wrestle with you, and then they've got to kiss you, and, you know, all that sort of thing. Yeah, I can get a fight and a wrestle and a kiss all in the 1 hour.
A holler like that can make you hungry, and Nan's brought a special lunch treat.
This is what they'll go for, probably, sausage roll.
Remembering the sauce preferences of the Quinns isn't easy, but feasting with the 5 is not the nightmare you may be anticipating.
What's a horsey say? What's a dog say? What's a cat say?
Yeah.
What's a train say? What does a duck say? What does Mummy say? Get to bed.
What's that? Bed? Ah, now I know how to inspire a post-lunch siesta. How about a bedtime story?
Yes, they're all very different. Jack's very soft and sensitive, very quiet-spoken little boy. Lewis is a boy. He's just very loud and a bit of a bully. And India's very talkative, a bit of a mother, likes to, like if someone falls over, she'll go and help them up and give them a kiss, and then she'll come and tell me, oh, I kissed Erica's hand and it's all better now, and that sort of thing. Erica's very talkative, very intelligent, hears something once and then can repeat it, so she's got a really good memory. And George is a bit of a boss. She gets her own way. She's the smallest, but what she wants, she gets, and she keeps the other 4 in line.
But there is one time when they're all very similar. It's been a year and a half since Plum Henry has seen sheep in his paddocks, and though there's no longer anything for the shearers, the shed is still a hive of activity. Plum Henry is still working with animals, it's just that they're wooden rather than woolen.
Wool went downhill and the drought started, and I was working for other people. This block's rather small, so I've got to always work for someone else, and the work started to drop away a bit, so it was time to look for something else to do, really. I started off with just the animals. They were great fun, and then I got into trays and mirrors, frames, and just anything, whatever the timber lends itself to, really.
And this is where Plum draws that inspiration. Other people's trash he turns to treasure.
Most people, if I want something pulled down, they give me a ring and I go and remove it for them. It's as simple as that, and I use it and make something in kind as payment.
You'll find former shearing sheds, pre-1900 slab huts, even old toilet seats and wool presses in Plum's hoard. Each piece's history is carefully noted down and attached to the final product.
A lot of people are very interested in what it was and where it came from and how it was put together and all those sort of things. Just a little bit of history in every piece, really.
So how much would you produce?
As much as I can at the moment. I sort of flat out, really.
And as far as the farm goes, are you going to build it back up?
Oh, no, it'll just be a sideline.
A few animals have already returned to Plum's paddocks, like their owner, keen not to let the drought lick 'em. No youngsters here, at least none under 60, but they're all over the moon about line dancing. Most of the girls have been line dancing for a year. Led by the intrepid Myra Mulligan, they've formed what's believed to be Australia's first over-60s line dancing group.
I went and sang the country music line dancing last year and I said I'm going to learn this. So I've ended up here.
Just by watching it, didn't it look a bit difficult?
Oh yeah, it looked a bit difficult, but I thought, oh well, I'll have a go.
Others were inspired by line dancing relatives with whom they now share classes. Some, though, are getting an earlier start than their grandmothers.
I just said, well, if they can do it, I can. I'm not as good as them though, but I'm learning and trying and enjoying it.
Some of the girls have a 2-hour round trip to get to classes in Tamworth. All the stomping and twisting and clapping worth the effort.
I'm a widow and you don't have to have a partner in line dancing, so you can just go along, you don't have to worry about having a partner.
It's good exercise and it's the social aspect as well. The friends that we've made, as you can see, we're all friends, and I didn't know these ladies 12 to 18 months ago.
Is it hard to learn?
No, not really. You've just got to keep thinking, that's all. If you let your mind wander, you're gone.
The hardest thing to do is to move from your chair onto the floor for the first time. Once you're out on the floor, you've done it. Anyone can line dance. They've only got to want to.
And you know, she's right. And this is where it all begins. At the end, it's where Lynn Atkinson fights fear of her four-legged friends to gather raw materials for her craft.
Sometimes I get people that send me hair for to make into something that they would like. And other times, I go out into the paddock and I snip a piece off a horse's tail.
Before she starts creating, Lynn washes the horse's hair much the same way she'd do her own.
The shine in the horse's hair is absolutely wonderful when it's all washed up. It just looks so totally different to what it does on the horse itself.
Once it's clean, Lynn works at a board she invented herself, transforming between 10 and 14 strands of hair into a fashion accessory.
This is a square plait or square braid that I'm working on at the moment, and it's what's used by the Mexicans in their hat bands and belts and their bridle reins and things that they make over there.
But the Mexicans weren't Lynn's inspiration. For 20 years she'd been making corn dollies like these. A magazine article she read in 1987 convinced her to give horsehair braiding a try.
The braids to me look very similar to my corn dolly plaits and braids. So after a fortnight of trial and error, I was convinced that I had the braiding the same as the article in the magazine. Ladies used to travel around the districts in Europe and plait up hair from deceased people's heads, and this was known as mourning jewellery. And then when photography came out, well, of course, it was all lost. But I have done human hair. I have a lovely piece of my mother's hair that I braided up.
And it's no harebrained idea. Horse or human, hair is often sent to this Balata braider for preservation as that most precious of sentimental commodities, jewellery.
To go. Here's Merrick. Still going. But he passed. Scored Australia. The country captain. Look at him go. He was barreled 38 outs.
Took the ball back and look at this. Customarily, as he does when he scored his try, head down and covers up. He's hit two of the best.
The Newcastle Showground Trust admits the old complex is in need of a facelift.
The showground is very tired and run down and very costly to maintain.
But that could all be about to change. After less than a week of discussion, the Super League has put forward a formal proposal to the Trust to develop the showground into a world standard football arena. Plans are being drawn up to cut the ground back to a football field size and develop seating to accommodate 30,000 people. Most of the old buildings would go.
A figure of $4 million has been bandied round, and I don't think that's the stopper.
Well, you think there could be more?
Well, I'm hoping so. But
the Super League has already spent $12,000 on plans for Marathon, but with that looking at best and each way bet after a night's knockback, it appears the Mariners are now homing in on the showground as time is running out for next year. The Super League is keeping its options open, but the Showground Trust is confident it will win the deal, making the two grounds, ARL and Super League, within a dropkick of each other. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Well, the substance can form an explosive mixture with air and is highly pollutant if it mixes with water.
Oh, yeah.
The who's who of local rugby league was at the Newcastle Leagues Club for the gala night. It had been a titanic battle for the title of Player of the Year, but Curry's big prop Brendan Dooley just made it over the line.
You know, it's a team game and everyone does their job, and I'm just happy to come up with mine.
He's been aggressive and skillful in leading the Curry pack in the run to the finals. Another Coalfields footballer wasn't far behind. Cessnock hooker Jamie Forbes, who just missed a Knights contract this season, was named the NRL's Players' Player of the Year.
I consider it a great honour to be, like you said, judged by the peers, because they're the ones you're playing against each week. You know, not the guys that are standing on the sideline. But, yeah, it's a great rap.
Rookie of the Year was Central Charlestown's Michael West, the top coach is North Nelson Bay's Mark Jones, and Rep Player of the Season was Steve Storey from Wests.
It's hard to believe, but this choir is mainly high school students. They and singers from the University of Newcastle will be performing a series of songs at City Hall tonight as part of the Choral Expo.
Have some of our outstanding regional choirs performing tonight, the Belmont Boys Vocal Ensemble, our regional choir, Hunter Singers, and choirs from Singleton, Gateshead and Merewether.
City Hall is expected to be packed for the 6th Choral Expo, and while the enthusiasm and talent are definitely there for a similar concert next year, there are concerns the shake-up announced yesterday in the Department of Education might make organising such a spectacular difficult. The Hunter will be split into 4 areas, each with its own administration.
If the Choral Expo goes ahead, it will have different administration and organisation, and we still don't know exactly how that will all work out, because the news is still so new about the regions, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Local Armaguard and Brambles guards met this morning to vote on the strike over safety issues, including manning levels. They believe they've made their point and didn't want to inconvenience the public any longer.
In Newcastle, we have voted unanimously to go back to work.
But the union is bound to follow the majority rule, including drivers from Sydney, and the men will stay out, maintaining pickets. All local banks and building societies contacted said there were no cash shortages. However, some have asked for union permission to break the picket to boost supplies. They were refused. The Newcastle Permanent closed down its automatic tellers during the day to conserve cash in the machines for the weekend. Patrons advised to get money over the counter. The ATMs were opened up after 5 this afternoon and will operate over the weekend. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The Falcons wound up their preparations this morning content with the knowledge that Illawarra gave the Bullets a physical encounter last night. The Hawks continued their remarkable winning streak with a 103-99 victory. But Newcastle's Still City cousins may not have done the Falcons any favours, making Brisbane more determined to split their road double tonight with tip-off at 7:50. In soccer, Edgeworth and West Wallsend played out a 0-0 draw in their last game of the Northern New South Wales Premiership this afternoon. Both sides had numerous opportunities to take the match but failed to convert. The result leaves the Bluebells fourth on the ladder, with the Eagles needing Wallsend to beat Western tomorrow to finish second behind Highfields. It was a harrowing sight. Leroy Loggins and Shane Hill both on target early. The Bullets led throughout. The margin extended to 21 in the second term. The Falcons continually punished for several turnovers. In contrast, the halftime entertainment had no problems with control. Nor did Brisbane. Loggins taking the Most Valuable Player award, while Hill frustrated the Falcons and their supporters. The boot of Phil Williams put Curry ahead, but it was the elusive centre pairing of Gavin Cook and Ewan McGrady that caused the early damage. Their opposite, Scott Coxon, continued his outstanding form, setting up captain Mark Jones, reducing the margin to 2. But the Marlins' mistakes again had them under siege. McGrady darting across from the following play the ball for his second. The sin binning of Robb and Hindmarsh left the Premiers with no way round their opponents. Instead, they went to the air early in the second half, Daniel Linane putting them 16-6 ahead. But the Bay refused to submit, Coxon scoring number 4 in the finals series, putting his side within a converted try. His partner John Allenson was denied by centimetres, with Williams having the final say, keeping Curry's aspirations of a hat-trick of premierships alive. The event was named in honour of a former member of the Hunter Mountain Bike Club, Brad Maund, who was killed while training near Muswellbrook last December. His wife Karen was one of nearly 100 riders to take on the challenging 7.6 kilometre circuit, finishing second in the expert women's division. Hunter riders fared well in most divisions, with Troy Hopley winning the 16s, Kim Hulbert the sports women's, and Steve Filmer the vets. In basketball, the Hunters women's side finished their season with a comprehensive 121-105 victory over Bendigo yesterday. The result left them with a 9-17 win-loss record for the season in the Southern Conference of the Continental Association. The men lost their final match against Bulleen, leaving them 10th on the ladder. And in lawn bowls, it was day 2 of the Lake Macquarie Prestige Singles at Charlestown today. In its first year, the tournament has attracted 7 internationals and 24 state players, all vying for the $8,500 prize money. The finals will be played on Friday.
Indeed, these medals belong to my grandfather.
who was a prisoner of war in Singapore between 1942 and 1945.
The march in Newcastle was a mere echo of the celebrations of 50 years ago, but that took nothing away from those participating.
We were so thrilled the war was over and the boys were coming home. That was all. That was the main thing. The war was over.
Now, as then, the smiles were ear to ear, joining the ranks led out by vintage vehicles, war veterans, widows and factory workers.
The war is as good as over. The Yanks have dropped an atom bomb. No cheering, no celebration, just a matter-of-fact acceptance. I think we were dumbfounded.
I hold many memories, some happy and many sad.
At Civic Park, a large gathering paid tribute to all who'd fought and worked for peace. But 2 minutes silence at midday spoke volumes in the minds of those who'd lived through it. An old Douglas aircraft jogged memories. A torch of peace was passed into the safekeeping of a new generation, and doves took wing, symbolising peace and freedom. Later, a service was held at Christchurch Cathedral, and crosses for the fallen planted in a memorial lawn.
Hasten the day when nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither learn war anymore.
Hundreds lined Gosford streets to cheer those who fought for peace. About 900 veterans marched to celebrate the 50th anniversary of victory over Japan. For some, the memories are still painfully fresh.
Well, it means quite a lot of memories. A lot of memories that I don't like to think about.
A younger generation, while blissfully ignorant to the reality of a world war, eagerly showed their appreciation for those who fought for their freedom. And for some, the urge to join in was too much. The march ended at Graham Park with a ceremony to remember fallen comrades and loved ones.
Darren Spradbro was shot dead with a .357 revolver. His body was found buried under logs in this gully on his uncle Brian Smith's property at Yarrowitch near Wauchope. Smith, who's been charged with Spradbro's murder, was today cross-examined in Newcastle Supreme Court. The prosecutor, Mark McAdams, said ammunition consistent with that used to shoot Darren Spradbro was found in Mr Smith's house and stables. Smith told the court he didn't know how the ammunition came to be in the house. Mr McAdam also asked Smith about a conversation he allegedly had with his niece, Deborah Schneider, before her brother Darren's body was discovered on the Yarrowitch property. Mr McAdam said Smith had said to her, "If I give you $30,000, would you ring up the police and tell them that Darren rang you?" Smith denies this. Mr McAdam said when Deborah asked why she should ring the police, Smith replied, "It will stop your mother worrying and it will stop the police searching." Smith said, "No, I never said that." Mr McAdam also put it to Brian Smith that you shot Darren Spradbro and you buried his body with a bulldozer. Smith replied, "No, sir, that is not true." The trial will continue tomorrow. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
current Australian schoolboy, Craigie has been used as a reserve this season, impressing the coach on each occasion.
I think he's got an enormous amount of natural talent. You know, he's a big, powerful kid for his age. He's a very good passing game, excellent evasive skills.
The 17-year-old replaces Ashley Gordon on the wing. The pack is unchanged, with Darren Tracy to remain on the bench. Andrew Johns will play despite his shoulder problem. Really's hand forced with the injury to reserve half Brett Kamali.
I think if Brett had been fit for this one, I would have enforced a layoff for Andrew.
The historic steam locomotive 5910 hauled into Maitland early this morning, ready for action again in recreating the troop train experience of the 1940s. The SRA has organised a 3-day trip with RSL sub-branches between Maitland and Armidale. Stops at Muswellbrook, Scone, Corindi and Tamworth, sure to evoke many wartime memories along the way. Meanwhile, the men and women who served in Australia's air defence network during the war descended on Williamtown RAF base today as part of their Australia Remembers reunion. These veterans manned radar outposts, keeping watch as the Japanese advanced on Australia. In April 1942, Harry Spry installed one of the first units on Tomaree Headland at Port Stephens, describing the radar gear in those days as tricky equipment.
So all sorts of little things could change with it, atmospheric conditions and the equipment itself being new and relatively untried. You never knew whether it was going to run for days without problems or it could give you trouble, every hour on the hour.
The secrecy surrounding the radar network meant that the wartime efforts of these servicemen and women has largely gone unrecorded.
Obviously they didn't do as much fighting as, say, some of the infantry battalions, but they were in the front line, they were in difficult situations. Sometimes they wouldn't get a food delivery for 2 or 3 months. Sometimes they were forgotten about virtually, but they still did their job.
While the reunion has stirred the memories, the radar veteran story is now set for greater exposure, with a history called Echoes Over the Pacific soon to be published.